Okay, well, I'm Ulrich, and I'm just giving you the visual summary of this day, which is about the personal leadership on the DONG Company Representative modules for North Sea operations. Don't care about that, but this is Ulrich Ramsing. I'll give you the review of the day. We're starting here with TAO, taking time, making agreements, being observant. Those are the essential leadership skills. If you don't take time to be a leader, if you don't make strong agreements, and if you're not paying attention even after the agreement has been made, you're going to run into trouble sooner or later. Each of these are then divided into more details. As in time, there's 5 key aspects. First one is deadline and duration. Don't just think about your assignments as having to be completed at a certain date. Also make sure to specify how long time is allowed and develop that as a discussion with the guy that, or the lady that you're handing the assignment over to. So deadline and duration. In the millisecond, breathe. Capture the air. That will give you a couple of extra seconds to answer questions, to get an extra little bit a minute when you're getting or receiving some tough feedback. You need to prioritize, and here we are talking about the priority matrix from Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits. The difference between just talking about priorities as, A, B, C, or D, or here as a relation between what is urgent, as in a time perspective, and what is important, as in relevance. That's all covered on King of Spades. The other aspects here in terms of key aspects is the planning. We want to be able to plan both ahead and backwards from a deadline. Sometimes switching perspectives is relevant. So if you have a deadline, then try to look at it in the ideal world. How much time should it have taken? Or otherwise, if you're sitting and planning ahead and you need to get it done faster, then imagine that there was a deadline. How would it then look if you had to break it down and get it done by a certain date? Then the card, which is Club of 10, is the project development cards. It shows you the relationship between the time that you spent and then the time at which it is sufficiently completed. And there's problems in this both being overdone and underdone, as shown by the orange and red line. And the important part here is also to plan a meeting where you very early or right after that you did the assignment, you make sure that you meet to clarify, correct, and confirm any adjustment that needs to be made. So time is both the long-term perspective, and it's the way we talk about time, and it's the very second where I need to push in some extra seconds in order to be able to handle the situation. So you have to take time. It's not going to be given to you, you have to take it. Agreements is really about the 3 Ps. It's about bringing purpose, product, and process in that particular order. Purpose is the big why. Why are we doing it? If I understand why we're doing it, what you want me to do, then I can pretty often actually figure out how to do it. But why comes first, because that's the motivating factor. What obviously comes before how, because going back to the J1 card, the Joker 1, that's our C2 duty, where it's absolutely paramount that we define what, not how. So if they understand why and what, then our partners in crime should be able to provide us with the how. This is all shown in the Hearts, or the King of Hearts. Why, what, how, as in purpose, product, and process. We had the discussion about when is it needed in writing, and the honest and short answer is whenever there's doubt. If you or somebody else is uncertain about whether or not there's clarity, then you probably want to put it in writing. Sometimes you'll give it to the expert. Sometimes you'll give it to the guy who hasn't done it before in order to test what he or she knows about this particular assignment. Regardless, you want to make it motivating. And that moves us into the King of Clubs, where we have Daniel Pink's understanding that motivation comes from autonomy, mastery, and purpose. In other words, if the common denominator between what the guy you're giving the assignment and what the organization needs, that common denominator needs to be as broad as possible. And it doesn't make sense to throw in a lot of money because that gets depreciated over time. So at the top of Maslow's pyramid, as is shown by Club Kings or King of Clubs, we have autonomy as in influence on what is being done. I have mastery as in I'm learning, I'm getting smarter, I'm improving. And we have purpose, which is the overarching why that I mentioned just a second ago. If you want to see more of this, go to YouTube, search for RSA, as in Royal School of Arts, RSA, Pink, as in Daniel Pink, and motivation, and there's a fine video in there that will show you more about these 3 killer components. Another aspect of the card here, which was the King of Hearts, was that it's important both to give and receive. It's important to say yes to an agreement, it is to give it. That's important if there's a boss coming in and giving you an assignment. Then you want to make sure that you say, yes, I would love to, but before I confirm, can I please make sure I understand why we're doing it? Potentially coming back the day after with further details. Because once you say yes, then you own it. There's also deadline and duration, and there's this item called time, price, and quality, which relates to the triple constraint here, where the idea is that you can handle almost any kind of negotiations as long as you are aware that if one component is being changed, then you need to be allowed to massage the 2 others. That covers agreements. Being observant is reacting to the yellow lights. Now we're passing J4, which is the summary card for Teo. Take time, agreements, and being observant. You have to observe the yellow light. If they feel there's something wrong, then you probably need to go back and investigate. You can observe it once. You can confirm that what you saw out of the corner of your eyes was true. And then you have to engage, because if you don't do it the 3rd attempt, it's going to turn into a bad habit. That's also explained on 10 of Hearts, which shows you the response matrix, with 75% of your time should be done on the positive touch points. And then you need to engage with good suggestions before the small thing turns big or goes from rare to repeated. More on situational leadership and feedback is all in Module 3, so we went straight from here into communication, revisited growth and open questions, and used the Jack of Clubs to talk about the fact that communication is all about what's in it for them. I need to make sure that I broadcast a radio signal that people actually want to pick up, and preferably take my message and break it down into 3 components, A, B, and C, or the 3 legs that the radio tower stands on, because that is what will be remembered. The example that we have here is from the real world, but think about the brand promises of the chocolate bar called Littersport. It's kvadratisk, praktisk, god, as it would be in Danish. Now, we also talked about stories and saw a video with a guy getting locked up in a cupboard. The good story is to engage the audience. You start with a problem, serve the action, and the result. That's how it's being conveyed. That's how you make it relevant. Because in the ultimate short communication that's found in the elevator pitch, you want to make sure that you use the opportunity of the random encounter in the elevator to make it short. You don't have much time available. You want to make it valuable, as in meaningful to you, and you want to make it personal. The video that we saw showed the fact that as soon as the recipient's daughter was mentioned, attention was being captured. That's all part of the elevator pitch, that it needs to be something that people can connect to. And it's not just for network meetings. It's for any kind of opening where you want to make sure that people understand why this is relevant to them. That's when you pitch it at the start of the meeting. Then you go back to your structure of 3 items throughout the meeting. You return to the framework. And when you close, you almost repeat your pitch, because it'll give people a sense of completion and satisfaction. The last item is about trust in media. And you've got to be very careful about when you use long-distance media, such as mail versus personal meetings. Mail is good for factual stuff. Personal meetings, as soon as it becomes emotional, you need to get in there. And that's all covered in the King of Diamond cards. Same card talks about trust, which is a combination of can and will. And the important thing to remember here is whether people can or not, that can be handled at the distance. Whereas whether they will or not, that you need to be upfront and personal in order to read the person's facial expressions, because that's so much part of the communication. The last component is actually from the day after. Here we're talking about change, using Rennie and using Cutter, looking into the future and looking back into a change situation that's already there. And then the last component in terms of communication is the risk, where you might design a process where you avoid priming and have mutual feedbacks into the situation at the same time, so that you get to the limits, or find the outliers, and thus make sure that you identify anything that could be at risk going forward. That's more of a process of later on. But short story is that all of this is covered in the, they were talking about personal leadership, and the essence really is that you have to take time, you have to make agreements, and you have to remain observant. Remove any of those or the techniques below, and your leadership is in jeopardy. So, that's the summary. Thank you for listening. Look forward to seeing you soon.